Hello, I am Greer McVay, and welcome back to the podcast for Living the Grape Life. In this second episode, I am going to present to you an interview I recently did with Nick Filice. He is the Grape Supply Manager at Silver Oak Cellars. It was an interesting interview. I learned a lot. Hopefully, as you listen, you're going to learn a lot too. We did the interview. It's been a little bit. It's been a few weeks, but I wanted to wait to present this interview a little bit into the spring because when we did it, well, you're not going to be able to see necessarily everything that we did because just because for reasons. But right now we are well into the spring. So as you watch this, if you decide to say go wine tasting this weekend, you're going to see something a little bit different. You are going to start to see some grapes budding on the vines and things like that. And I wanted to make sure that people didn't just like see it and then go out and look at dormant vines and have nothing really to like no point of reference and nothing really to sort of make it make sense. So that's why we're presenting it now. That said, it was a very interesting conversation. Now, before I get to that, in the interim, I have been doing a lot of wine tasting. And if you are following me on any of our social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, or on the website, livingthegrapelife.com, where that content is as well. But if you've been watching, you've been seeing me getting out and starting to talk to people and really getting the lay of the land of, just sort of how wine comes together. And that's ultimately where I want to go with this. I want to educate myself and then you, while I'm on my journey and you're on your own journey, I want to educate you about how we get from a grape on a vine to a glass of wine, or in this case, a bottle of wine. We've got Silver Oak. We've got Silver Oak for days, y'all. So anyway, but in order to get there, a lot of things have to happen, as you could imagine. So I'm really, with this interview with Nick, I wanted to go back sort of to the beginning, back to the sort of the start. And the start is just growing grapes, right? That's sort of the basic, that's just where you got to start. The last interview we did with Hope Nastry, who's a winemaker at Twomey, which is a sister property of Silver Oak. And as a winemaker, she sort of walked us through how she, does the mixing and the tasting and the thinking and growing the grapes and when do you pick and all of that. And it got me thinking, well, okay, you're going to pick the grape and you're going to process that. You've got to crush it and you've got to ferment it and bottle it and age it and all these things that you do. But how do you get the grape? Like, let's go back to the grape, right? So, and this is the Grape Life. So what I did was I sought out the Grape Supply Manager, and he's going to talk about what that is and what he does. But this is the person who sources the grape. So it's not just for Silver Oak. It is also for Twomey and their sister properties. And they have a variety of grapes, types of grapes, varietals that they manage. Silver Oak only has, this is important, Silver Oak only makes Cabernet. So all the grapes, when he's talking about Silver Oak, he's talking about Cabernet in American oak. That's what they do. And they have their own cooperage and they make their own barrels and everything. So that's really interesting. But for Twomey, they do Pinot Noirs and other grapes, Sauvignon Blanc. And so there's a little bit of, he wears a couple of different hats and he's going to talk about that. But what's interesting, what I found really fascinating is it's not just Silver Oak growing the grapes or Twomey growing the grapes. They actually work with other people, other growers in the industry who grow their grapes, and then he sources them. So he has relationships with all these different growers around in his region. And he talked about what it's like to manage those relationships, to find people, to bring in new growers, and how they work in partnership to produce this amazing wine. And I'm here to say that Silver Oak is amazing wine, as is Twomey. So first, let's talk. I'm gonna, without further ado, we're gonna bring you Nick Filice, and in this first clip, and I'm gonna show you a series of clips. We've broken it up a little bit, and I'll circle back and talk throughout as I do. But in this the first couple of clips, he is talking about himself and how he came to be. So I'd like to start today with you. Just tell me a little bit about you, Nick. Your background and how you came to this role at Silver Oak.
Okay, yeah. My family's been, I'm third generation in the wine business actually. So I kind of followed my family, if you will. My dad's a winemaker. Grew up with wine on the table. Grew up in the farming industry. So gained understanding through that. And I kind of say come to realize it's part of my pedigree actually. And so, kind of followed it and went to school in Chico for a whole nother passion, and kind of fell out of it after I realized this is not what I want to do, and kind of fell back into the ag world, and then started tasting wine, and I was able to talk about it with my dad, and then became a little more passionate about it, and I just kind of followed my instincts a little bit, and wound up doing grow relations down in Paso Robles actually for Justin Winery, and got to really cut my teeth and learn a lot. It was a very fun experience. Got to travel a little bit and really broaden my experience, my knowledge of different wine regions, the different varietals. Talk with a lot of growers too. So that's part of what I do, right? And so I got to really hone in those skills and followed my girlfriend's now wife up north, and wound up actually at Silver Oak probably by good luck, right? So a lot of hard work and then a lot of luck as well. And so now I'm here today. It's my 16th year.
16th year. That's a long time. And he clearly loves it. I could tell his passion for what he does, his love of being outside, being in nature. He's sort of a farmer after all, right? He's out there growing grapes or working with people who are growing the grapes. One of the things that I did find interesting about Nick's story and how he got into this role is that he started somewhere else. And I'm finding as I'm out and about, so many people are coming into wine as a second or maybe even a third career. A lot of people don't necessarily grow up thinking, when I grow up, I'm going to be a winemaker or a grape supply manager or what have you. That's just not necessarily what they do. But they are so as you can see, Nick didn't necessarily come into this in a straight linear path. So many people get into winemaking or the wine industry, whether they're the grape supply manager or the winemaker or whatever, in marketing or whatever it is that they do. So many people have the circuitous route and they end up finding a passion for it and they come on. It's for a lot of people, I find, so many people talk to me and they're like, I'm really interested in wine or working in the wine industry. How do you start? Where do you start? What do you do? And what I'm finding is there is no one right way. Yes, there are people who love wine and, are 18, 19, 21 years old. And they're like, oh, I want a career in wine. One of my girlfriend's son just graduated college and he's working in wine. So it does happen. But for so many people, they don't know. There are other things that they do. And ultimately, they're like, you know what? This is something I feel really passionate about. And they find ways to get into it, which is why I'm here. So just as a note to self, it's never too late. But in Nick sort of talking about how he got there, he went to school for something else and eventually just sort of rolled into it. But one of the things that sort of caught my ear was he said, I grew up and my family, we had wine. We had wine at the dinner table. And I was like, oh, that's my kind of family. Right? That's actually sort of how my family was growing up. So I was like, well, let's talk a little bit more about your father, because he said his father was a winemaker. I was a little interested to hear more about his dad. So you say that your father was a winemaker. Was this just like a hobby in the garage, or was he did he have his own?
So his on his mom's side, his family were hobby winemakers. So they had equipment and stuff. Very used to seeing that around. My dad grew up in the farming world, big rooms down there. His cousins also had a winery down in the kind of Gilroy area. It was called the Filice Winery. And he wound up in the tasting room, working in the tasting room, started there, and then he moved down to Gonzales, pulling hoses around on the cellar floor, and learned a lot there, and then found himself in the lab, and then found himself as winemaker. So he didn't get a chance to go to school for it, but learned on the job, so to speak. And so, that's how he ended up being a winemaker.
Oh. So again, it's interesting that you can be self-taught. You can just be in the wine world, which Nick was, right? He grew up in this, and there was just so much, he knew people, but I think he felt like he wanted to go a different path and do something different, and then circled his way back to it because, I guess he's got wine in his veins, or dirt under his finger. It's like he wanted to feel the dirt and be a part of that world. And that's now what he's doing all these years into it. So, but as we shifted our to what he does and the whole sourcing of the grapes, it was like, again, it never occurred to me that even was a job. Now it's like, yeah, duh, obviously there's, somebody's got to make sure there are grapes. But I think maybe I just sort of assumed that you've got a winery, you've got a vineyard, you're growing grapes. Of course, you've got grapes, but sometimes you got to fill the gaps, or your grapes aren't quite where you need them to be, or you need more. There are a whole bunch of things. So we talked about how you go, from the wide world of grapes to, tightening that up. You source the grapes. That's your job, is to source grapes. So how does one go from this macro winemaking, the wine business, down to, I'm going to be the guy that goes around sourcing grapes? What does that even mean?
Yeah, so, trying to follow your question, but I think it takes someone that understands agriculture. Right? This is not a factory, so I don't get to just pull a lever and then it pumps out whatever we've got, in it. I'm working with weather. I'm working with, supply demand curves. I'm working with our plans as a winery of how many cases we want to do. So I think first and foremost, I'm part of a very good team, and we have a good dialogue going on, what we want, what our expectations, and then it's knowledge of the area and knowledge who's going to be able to perform and sites, and then kind of whittling it down. A lot of it's trial and error. A lot of it is just being open and understanding these elements that you work in, and try to approach it, with a lot of truthfulness and a lot of empathy, right? Kind of on that line of empathy and being truthful with the grower, because it's not fun to tell a grower they didn't make the cut. So I think understanding those parameters is a good place to start, and then being able to be decisive out in the vineyard, create a vision with the grower, right? Making sure that they're on the same page with you, not just at harvest time, but also at pruning time all the way through, and that way you're going through the season with them, as opposed to just showing up and and buying the grapes and then bringing them in, and or rejecting them if they don't make it for any reason. I've not had to reject grapes, so yeah, I think those are.
But you would if you had to.
If I had to, but but my winery would know a lot. Hopefully would know in advance, and the grower would know in advance. But yeah, I mean, we've had to. That's not true. We've had to reject some lots because of smoke before, so that's actually. Yeah, I'm fibbing, I guess. I did reject some grapes, but again,
that wasn't a fib. That was just a miss.
But again, that was something. I'm part of a team. We ran analysis. We were very open with the grower. The grower wasn't surprised by it. A grower doesn't want their fruit tasting bad.
No, a grower does not want their fruit tasting bad, right? The grower has a reputation as well. And if you are one of the select growers that is growing or producing grapes for this particular brand or these brands, the Silver Oak family of brands, you have a vested interest in making sure that you're delivering a top-notch product, right? So just to take a step back, and he's going to talk about this a little bit more, but I just want to set the stage a little. Grapes, like any crop, right? They grow over the course of a year, and he's going to walk us through what that year looks like. But you grow over the course of a year, or what the growing season is, right? So after last season, right? So you're done with last season's crop, you harvest, and then you've got this, farm, right, with nothing on it. I mean, it's got the vines, it's dirt, and then it's going to sit and be dormant during the winter. And then you're going to start to prepare for next season. You've got to prepare the soil. You've got to prepare the vines and do pruning and do all these things to set up. And then you're planning and you're changing. You're making certain kinds of decisions about what you want to plant and where you want to plant it. And there are all these things that are involved in the growing of the crops. There are things, the angles of the sun and where they are on the mountain, or what AVA are you in? So what is your water source, and what is the heat and the topography? And I mean, there's so many things that go into all of the decisions about this grape. I mean, the incredible little grape. And it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. So these are very serious decisions, right? So he's basically saying, we're not just, showing up one day and saying, hey, like I might go to the grocery store and buy a pound of grapes and then have some grapes, right? It's not like that. They're part of the entire process. Yes, there is someone who's the grower. It is someone who is responsible for growing this grape and delivering it and caring for it throughout its lifespan. But the whole team, there's an entire team, but he's responsible for those relationships. And a big part of his job is maintaining the relationships, in addition to working with them and helping them the grower know what it is that they want in a grape. So let's hear a little more. So let's just take a step back then. So I want to make sure that I'm understanding this. Silver Oak, you guys have your own vineyards, and Twomey has its own vineyard. So first of all, you source for Silver Oak, Twomey, over all your brands, or
so
just Silver Oak?
So I cover from I cover from Oregon down to the Central Coast for Silver Oak and for Twomey. I would get to work with the audit team, but Austin is really that's kind of a program built for Austin's taste, and so he does the grower relations. Okay. I get to work with him a little bit, but I don't source grapes for Austin. And then I also manage some of our estate vineyards as well. Okay, so the estate vineyards are vineyards that you own, that Silver Oak owns. Silver Oak and Twomey own the estate vineyards. Mm-hmm. And then in addition, so you augment that with wine, with grapes. Contracted growers.
Okay. Yeah. And what percentage is which? How much is estate?
Yeah, so we're in both, let's say in Napa and Alexander Valley, we're approximately 70-75% estate first grower. Twomey, Pinot we got probably like 80%. I should know that, but we're 80% is estate.
Okay, and your estate wines, your estate grapes or your estate wines, are those 100% estates, or do you segregate the estate grapes from the other grapes that you're contracting, that you're outsourcing, and then doing those like more general, just your cap? Like you have an estate cap. I don't know.
No. So at Silver Oak we've got Alexander Valley and we've got Napa. Right?
Okay.
And then so all of the grapes go on.
Okay, so you
here.
combine regardless of the source.
This is an
of the
expression
grape.
of what. So we're drinking a 2012 Alexander Valley. So for us, this is the best expression of 2012. Our state and all of our outside growers, our contracted growers that made this blend. So we thought this was the best expression of 2012.
Okay. The best expression of a 2012. All the grapes are putting them together. A lot of wineries do have an estate wine, which are the grapes made from the grapes that they grow on site at their winery. And then they have other wines that are blends, or that are either blends of different varietals, or they're blends of grapes from different wineries, but not at Silver Oak.
Of the area. Yeah.
Of the alley, and then you've got other AVAs or sub AVAs that
Alexander Valley and Napa or Silver Oak, right?
Okay.
And then we do have some other things that we do. That we have a terroir driven wine that's timeless, which you had a chance to taste at the growers dinner, and that's derived from our Soda Canyon Ranch that Dave Shane manages. So that's an expression of just that vineyard. And then our Twomey wines, we've got things that show just that vineyard, right? And then we also have our AVA wines, like our Russian River, which is accumulation of our vineyards, kind of much like this, where that's our best expression of that year.
All right, but for Silver Oak specifically, it's going to be the Oakville and
Alexander Valley, and we try to treat everyone very fairly. We separate all of their wines.
Okay.
And then we do we'll do an initial blending and then another blending and then a final blending.
So when you pull these grapes together from your various sources, obviously you're going back to the ones that are tried and true.
Yeah.
And maybe you're constantly adding and moving around, but you go through the season, following those grapes, so you know what to expect. Things may shift, but
we hope, Greer, right? I mean, I think our goal is to have long-term growers in the program, but we don't. Again, I work within the season, and I do have some growers that I can call for late grapes, or go and try. It also gives me an opportunity then to go try someone else's grapes, and maybe they make the program long-term, which has happened before. Okay. So I mean, the goal is to have long-term growers and have the plan set and going. It's just when you work in a really hot year and all of a sudden your supply shrinks and everyone's out racing for grapes, that happens. Or if it's a season like where it goes a little bit long and then all of a sudden no one's buying grapes anymore and you can work with what you have, right? So our goal is to be with a grower from pruning to harvest. But sometimes I have to go buy some grapes a little bit late, and it helps to know where those sources are.
Because you have an output that is expected. So you expect to have X number of cases of however many thousands of cases of wine, and millions, or however thousands of cases of wine by the end of the season. So it would obviously, your accounting department would be like, well, what's going on if we don't have, if you're not close to that, or so you may have to go out and source to get some additional if necessary. Yeah,
we like to come on target, right? We have a saying, don't be short, right? Don't be short. So for us, we're at a position where we want to make sure that we can get wine to all of our clientele, and so that is the main goal. It's not be short, in a good season, right?
It's to not be short, but it is also to
be as close as possible. That doesn't mean that we take any shortcuts when it comes to
exactly. It's to maintain the consistency, the quality, and all that. But on target.
That's right. That's right. I mean, there's even in short years, there's vineyards I'll go out to and just not what we're looking for, right? So I have to say no. So you have to say no in situations and/or make the decision on the blending bench. So that's where the winemakers come in, and we have a great winemaking team that can assess that and make that decision.
So, and we're going to get to the blending. We are going to get to the blending in just a minute. And so where we are, right, is we've got to have a certain volume of grapes in order to make the amount of wine that they expect to make. And they grow a certain amount. They have grower partners who produce a certain amount. If they find themselves having maybe a year where, uh, for one reason or another, some grapes just are, don't make the cut, or we have fires, you lose some crops or something like that, there are some things that they can do. Obviously they could find additional um, growers, but they try to use the same growers. So, and those growers know the Silver Oak brand. They know what Silver Oak is looking for. And because they've been part of this entire process, and they've been communicating throughout the growing season. So just sort of like showing up and getting some grapes willy-nilly is not quite what they do, but there are some options that they do have if they need it. So let's talk a little bit about getting new growers and how they bring growers in or develop those relationships. And as importantly, how they come up with those picking decisions, right? Once the grapes are ready to go, how do they know and how do they communicate to their grower partners? So what are you looking for in a grape? You're picking grapes, you're eating them. And apparently you're eating a lot of grapes from August to
October,
August, October.
So,
and now with climate change, so we might be getting in October and November.
Well, that's a lot. As I saw, as you know, last year we kind of pushed us a little bit later than what we thought was going to happen. But what am I looking for in grapes? So when we are tasting grapes, we have a way of dissecting them and to be able to talk about them, berry sensory analysis. So we're tasting pulp, we're chewing skins, tasting skins, and we want to make sure that the skins disappear in 15 chews. The pulp is not snotty, right? It's actually juice. It's got nice aroma, berry flavor. You can look at seeds. You would like the seeds to be brown. A lot of times they're not. That doesn't really hinder us all the time. Some winemakers really take that seriously, but we don't want to see dehydration happen. We're trying to catch
raisins.
No, for our style of wine, we're definitely presenting a wine that can be laid down and aged, for 10 years. It's still drinkable upon being released, but so the tannins do have to be right. But we still want to make sure that we bring in freshness from the vineyard, right? So we still want some acid, we still want some liveliness, as opposed to big, rich, ripe wines for our style. Again, this is for our style and how we go about it. It's going to be fun for you to talk to other winemakers and see what that answer is as well, because I like.
And that was an interesting point that he just made. The notion of making a wine and designing it in such a way, or blending it in such a way that the acid levels and the flavor profile and all those things are such that you can, as he called it, lay the wine down, that you can store it, age it, and it will be better. Typically, red wines over white. Red wines will last longer than white wine. So if you get some white wine, drink it. Maybe a year or two, but you want to drink it. Wineries winemakers will age wine. It's obviously aging in the barrel, then they put it in the bottle, and some will age it in the bottle even another year or two or three before they present it for distribution. And that's a little bit of what he's saying, right? So they're making some wines so that they will age well, and they know that in years 10, 5, 8, 9, 10 more, it'll be a better wine. Which, by the way, I have a 2007, so I am like looking forward to it. I think it might be like at its prime, so I got to wait for like a fabulous dinner or something and and invite somebody special over, or some special people over, I should say, to enjoy it with me. So, but let's talk a little bit more with Nick about what it means. How do you make that picking decision? Yeah, tasting the grapes. That's step one.
Yeah.
Some people do that style really well. Yeah.
So it would be different. Like, I mean, you're looking for a particular thing that you just described, right? And 15 choose. I mean, this is like fascinating. That's going to have to be its own clip. That is, because that's really fascinating. But other winemakers may be like, oh, well, we want a wine that is going to be. I can't. What you just described sounds like logical.
We try
Who
to
would
be
not
there.
want that?
Yeah.
What else might someone look for? I mean,
I don't know.
We want it to be squishy, and we want it to be, not firm and not
Yeah,
pop.
we started doing the barocentric analysis, I think, in 2010, I want to say. Because the previous winemaker, Daniel Barron, and I found out we'd be talking to each other, but our conversations would evolve to like, hey, what's wrong with the Giants season? Or, what's going on with the Warriors, right? And so we're talking about sports, and you're kind of losing the point of what you're doing. And so this keeps us on track. We also are writing down we also rate them 1 and 6. So like in the 4th would be, that lines up, right? So I could be up here tasting fruit. Daniel could have been in Napa, and I could have said, hey, should I come up here and taste tomorrow? This is all starting to line up. So it was a good indicator, right? So it gets us all in the same language.
Okay.
So that's kind of come about, and it's kind of lasted as well. So now Nate, who's taking over for Daniel, uses it. Laura down in Napa uses it. Or my maker up here uses it, right? And so Justin uses it at Twomey. So we all have the same language, and so we can kind of gather what we're talking about, put this all on the same plane. Some winemakers don't have to worry about that. It's their call only, and they go out and taste, and when it's ready, it's ready. That's kind of how that goes, which is totally understandable.
Okay.
It can be a team process. Everywhere it is not. So at Silver Oak, they do make it they make the picking decisions, again, part of a team decision. And I think they get better wine probably as a result of it.
Some grow relations people will call the winemaker, bring the winemaker out, and it's still the winemaker's decision.
But the grower may say, I think these are ready, and you guys are like,
yeah.
I mean, once they
grower loves to get us out there as early as possible to pick. And I think in some cases probably some growers call.
I mean, if I've been your grower for 5 years, I probably know a thing or two about what you're looking for.
So look, my relationship with our growers, gives us a lot of opportunity to make sure we're on time, right? So, hey Nick, last year you guys did this. I know you guys are on this track. These are where these are lining up. Oh, okay. I'll make sure I get my guys out there to taste.
All right.
Right. And so for sure. That's where having long-term growers is so important. Is that they know your style, they know how you guys tend to react, how fast you guys react, right? So that's actually really interesting. Yeah.
So the grower relationship, again, is central to a lot of the decisions, right? But the grower is the person that is with the fruit day in and day out around the clock. So while the Silver Oak team works and especially once you get toward harvest season, they're certainly out there, sounds like daily or, close to daily when it's almost time to pick. And again, he's going to talk about that in a bit. But having that relationship with a grower who knows what you want, they know what they're doing, they can anticipate your needs, and they can call you up and say, hey, we've got a problem, or hey, we think they're ready, or whatever. But by the time the grapes are close to ready, it's not like, you're going to be caught off guard, right? Because you got a grower calling you on, in August or something, and you had no idea because you weren't planning to harvest until in October. That's just not quite how it happens. But, when it gets down to the wire, every day is critical. And somebody who's out there tending the grapes is able to really help you make those critical decisions at crunch time.
How many growers do you typically work with in a season?
I'd say so. We have probably 20 to 30 growers in Alexander Valley, about 10, 15 in Napa, and then about 10 for a total of Twomey.
Okay. Okay. So with those growers, I mean, and they're part of the team. Well, let me ask this. One, do they work with are they exclusive to Silver Oak and Twomey, or do they work with do they supply grapes for everybody else?
So this is a great question. No, so the answer is no. We do work with other growers that have big ranches that supply to a lot of wineries.
Okay.
I do try, part of my strategy that we've encompassed is to, make sure we have a whole block designated to our winery, because then you can really manipulate those grapes the way you want to, whereas if you're sharing with a bunch of other winemakers, it's really hard to manipulate how your winery wants them to come in.
What does manipulation look like?
Watering, canopy control, when to harvest, for instance, how much fruit to have on the vine. It just makes it a little bit more difficult if you're sharing a block. And then it's common for smaller wineries to do that, and it's not completely out of the question. And our goal is to try to get at least 12 blocks.
Okay. And how big is a block? What is a block?
Yeah, that's a good question, because so like Twomey's blocks would be smaller than what we do over here. For here, I like to have 4-acre blocks coming in here, which gives us 20 tons or so. 20 tons,
which is not a lot of wine. I'm surprised that it's not as much as 20 tons. You think, oh, that's enough to
it's enough to get you in trouble.
Touche. Okay, so you're working with these growers. They're very committed to the team. Mm-hmm. They understand what it is that you're trying to do. Now let's talk a little bit about your relationship with the wine maker or whoever's doing the blending. Okay. The blender is the winemaker, correct? Mm-hmm. Which is different from the owner or the vintner. There are all these different roles. But
so I'm the eyes and ears for winemaking, right? So my job is to be out there and know the market, know the situation that our growers are in. Be able to be a good back and forth, be a good middleman between winery and grower. So that's really my job with winemaking, and then also to go out, understand what my winemaker's needs are, understand what my grower can do, and then kind of make those expectations meet in the middle somewhere. So that's generally how I think about what my role is with a winemaker. Yeah.
So when I talked to Hope Nastry, who's one of your winemakers over at Twomey, Philo, Anderson Valley, when we talked, she talked about walking the vineyards and tasting the grapes and making these decisions that might be, it's almost ready, we like it, maybe 4 more days or 7 more days. Oh, but we're expecting a heat wave or a rain is coming. So those are all the considerations that you have before you can, we can't pick in the rain. Well, we might as well, let's just pick tomorrow or, whatever that is. So how much of that is you? Let me ask this. You're a farmer. I mean, do you consider yourself a farmer?
I'm a fake. So at Grower Relations, I pretend I'm a farmer. Okay. And now when I manage our estate vineyards, I'm a farmer. Okay. But it's a great thing to have, because it puts everything in context, and I can always recommend stuff that I would try only, versus you get a lot of recommendations that I would never try, right? As opposed to I would never try because I don't know if it'll work or not. I can recommend what I know works, right? Okay. So I do have that experience, but I wouldn't call myself a farmer when I'm Grower Relations, but because I get to manage vineyard, I am a farmer.
So for the city folk who are in the building, you're a farmer. For the farmer, the ones out there doing the farming, you're like, I'm not going to go there. Yeah. But so what I'm trying to get at is, as this team is walking the vineyards and you're tasting the grapes and you're trying to make these decisions, who trumps who? Who's
Yeah, no, it's a conversation. I love it. No, this is great because it always comes down to dialogue and to have a feel for what your winemaker wants. Here's a good story. So 2 years ago, I was out picking. It was 11 o'clock at night, and we were doing a night pick, and it was a warmer year already. We were I think it was August. We were picking in Russian River, and we had some grapes down in the Central Coast that we were working with the Filice family with, and I happened to look at my phone, and when you're in the harvest, your mode is okay. Weather, what day is it? How many days do I have to give notice, right? For the pickers who come in there. When's it coming in? When's that coming in, right? So I'm always 2 days out essentially when I'm awake. So I looked at my phone, I looked at weather, and all of a sudden they had a prediction of it being like over 100 degrees down there, and the fruit was almost ready as it was, and so we were right on the line of when to call it. And so at 11 p.m. I called Justin, our winemaker, director of winemaking for Twomey, and I said, hey, this is what I'm seeing. I said, if we get it on Monday, we should be great. But so I texted Mark Pizzoni, the grower down there, and I said, hey, can we get our fruit? And we were the first one in line as a result. But that was just kind of because I was awake at 11, and I just kind of doing my thing.
So
and then knowing what Justin's expectations were of getting on the phone. It's 11 o'clock, so calling someone at 11 o'clock, it better be some type of emergency or some kind of like
it's somebody's baby being born.
It's not casual conversation, but him picking up the phone, we got in line. That's a big deal for us.
So the people who are going to do the picking, right? The workers out in the field.
True,
They work for whomever. So you gotta get in line. I mean, they're like, somebody is like, oh, I can get a crew to come in here and the pick. I mean, I'm assuming how that works.
Yes.
And if they're like, oh no, we're over here. If there's no crews available, then because they don't work, does that mean that they don't work for Silver Oak?
It just means right. You have a finite amount of people to be able to pick, right? A finite amount of machines to pick. So you do have to use all your resources correctly. And then always remember too, these are people.
Yeah.
It's pretty taxing work.
Yeah.
And so
if it's going to be 100 degrees, and I think
but it's just so you just gotta remember, treat these people like people, right? And then make sure that me giving proper notice and everything makes the whole production a little more seamless.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's really my goal with that, is to be able to be in good communication with the people that are responsible for scheduling, and then the actual crew that does the work, and they know where they're going and they're not losing their minds.
Have you not been looking at your phone and happen to see that, oh, a heat wave is coming? I mean, would you lose an entire crop, a season's worth of grapes? I mean, what would that look like?
Yeah, so I wouldn't have lost a season. I would have been further down the line. Grapes could have gotten a little bit warmer, a little bit more concentrated, right? I would have had to accept it, whatever kind. And then Justin would have maybe had to make some manipulations in the winery versus just crushing them and going, right? And so, that decision of when to pick is always the most crucial, because you can't put them back on, right? And so, anyways, that was.
But then you spread that. You're like, no, it's a team decision. It's like, it's not my decision. It's a team decision. So nobody actually is left over in the back.
Well, yeah. So the winemaker always trumps.
Okay.
Right. I mean, the winemaker always trumps my decision. Right. I can give my suggestion and then kind of move out of the way. I think here at Silver Oak, that's kind of the way it works. The way it works in general. You give your opinion, and then you kind of let the group make that decision. And so it's actually. That's the way it works.
That's the way it works. So our conversation went on. I'm going to show another clip where we really talk about, this one's a little longer, but we talk about the growing year, sort of what is the cycle and what is that, just what does that look like? This will be good for you when you go to visit the next time you go up to wine country, any wine country for that matter. It may be the seasons may be a little different in some other parts of the world, but the cycle of the process would be pretty similar. But a couple of things when you go, depending on where you are, you may still see somewhat slightly dormant vines. By now, most of them should at least start to have some green leaves and some shoots and things like that. I was at a winery 2 days ago. It wasn't Silver Oak, but it doesn't matter. And they had, you could see little teeny tiny clusters of grapes already starting to I don't know if that's blooming or starting to appear. So and again, part of the reason that I wanted to wait was so that you could, when you do go out, you could see, okay, what sort of dormant, they're not all that pretty, but there are some that are actually, I've taken some pictures of some dormant vines. So, but you've got the dormant vines and dry and overgrown fields and things like that, because they're still, again, they're pruning and prepping and getting it ready. And then now you're starting to see the leaves grow and some grapes grow. And then in another month or so, as we get well into the further into the spring and the weather starts to heat up, you're going to start to see the flowers and the blooming and the bigger, more plumper grapes. So he talks a little bit about that as well. But one other thing that I want you to notice, the next time you go for a drive in the country, even if you're not wine tasting, but you're just driving in an area that has, particularly Napa, Sonoma, or some of our areas around here, if you look around at all these fields of grapes, if you don't see a winery, if there's no tasting room, if there's no winery, if there's no facility, you just see farms. Those are the growers that he's talking about. Those are the people that, some of them will have a sign. I've seen plenty of signs. It's like, I'm a Silver Oak grower, and I would probably want to publicize that as well. But, they don't all have signs, or the signs are not necessarily always visible from the road. But those, hillsides where you see tons of just rows and rows and rows, acres and blocks of grapes being grown. Those are, in many cases, obviously not everyone is a Silver Oak grower, but those are the growers that he's talking about. And a lot of people will buy some land, maybe just a couple of acres, and become growers. They don't even do their own wine, but they live in the beautiful environment. They've got these lovely grapes that are growing. They have this relationship that helps pay for their vineyard. And, so there are a lot of ways, again, to get involved in the wine business. You don't have to be a farmer. And as a matter of fact, if you have land, there are people who will come and they will tend to they'll do it for you. It doesn't sound like the average, like if I went and bought 2 acres of land or 10 acres of land tomorrow, I don't think that Silver Oak is going to be like, yeah, Greer, come be one of our growers. But at least now I know sort of what it looks like and some steps that I might take, and I can find ways. Maybe I start with some other winery, or of course my own. I'm always about that. So let's hear Nick Filice. Again, he's the Grape Supply Manager for Silver Oak and Twomey. But let's hear him talk about what the season looks like.
So what is a typical day at work like? I mean, do you have an office? Is your office nature?
I do, yeah. No, my office, I spend a lot of time in the truck, so I spend a lot of windshield time, right? Mm-hmm. Driving, I cover a pretty big area.
And you said from Oregon?
I get to, yeah. So our guy, Chris Burrell, is our guy up in Oregon.
Okay, so he's on the Willamette, or?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And
okay.
I get to work with him,
okay,
right, when I go up there. But he's doing a great job up there managing that program on a more day-to-day basis. But yeah, so, I wear a lot of different hats, and I get sent on different projects a lot. But so I could wake up one day, drive all the way to Anderson Valley, and have to be in Napa late in the afternoon. I can go out and start pruning with the crew and be there all day.
And then have to come back and meet with some podcaster.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, my days are. So I love the variety.
Yeah.
And my day, in fact, I can't imagine my day being any different than it is now. I would be bored if I didn't have the variety. I think probably just train.
Okay.
Right? I really do quite like it. I like having a pretty free and open schedule. I don't like being confined.
But let's talk a little bit then about the growing year or the planting season. What do you call it? The growing
year. Yeah.
Growing year. Okay. So right now there's no grapes on there. Obviously no grapes on the vines.
Yeah, they're dormant.
But they're vines. They're dormant. So what's going to happen? We're in March.
So
Basically, we are in March. So
yeah.
we're in March. And so this is what's going to happen between March and October.
Yeah, so right now the crews are out pruning, right?
Okay.
So actually this is probably the most important process.
So pruning is getting it ready, cleaning it up, getting rid of
getting all
doing
the dead,
what?
getting all good, making your decisions on what's going to carry fruit, right? So you get to assess the vine, how strong it is, how much do you want it to start with, right? So get evenness as quick as possible. I think.
So you have some vines that you'll be like, we're going to skip this season?
No, but we're going to prune it harder, right?
Okay.
So we're going to leave less buds out there, which in turn will have less vegetation. So we want to get it stronger. We want to push that vegetation and get it stronger. Maybe next year we can leave more buds on that vine. So we're kind of thinking about next year.
Okay.
Right? So when you're pruning, you're making decisions for the year, working with last year's decision making, right? And also you're planning for the future.
Okay.
So you're living in like three different realms when you're pruning. It's actually really fun. So that's what they're doing. That's what crews are currently doing when it's not raining.
Okay. When does that start? I mean, did that already start in January or last?
Some growers do it after the first frost.
Okay.
Very early on. Some growers will do it, December 1st.
Okay. So as soon as they're done harvesting, they're ready to a little bit of a break, but then they're like back out.
How big is your crew? Right. So how big is your crew? How long is it going to take them to get through? What happens when you have a week of this or 2 weeks of this that pushes you out, and they've got other vintage to go to? So you have to be mindful of it. We started at the end of January this year, or actually, I'm sorry, the beginning of January, just knowing, how long it's going to take us to get through everything. These are trained, crews, and so their time is valuable out there. And so when we take days off like this hurts us. So pretty soon we're going to have to wear rain slippers and get out there and prune out in the rain if this doesn't stop. So we're expecting, I think, 5 days of this.
Okay.
Right.
So you get through pruning in sort of January, February, March.
That's a hard season after. So when the vines wake up, bud break, and that's frost season. So then
okay.
So then we have to worry
so that's
about
not
late
spring. So it's not like and then it's spring and everything blossoms. That's not how it goes. Okay.
No, so a lot of ranch managers are out early in the morning. Sometimes start the wind machines or frost protection at 10 p.m. and then work all the way to 7 a.m.
So we haven't had our coldest nights. Winter's almost over.
Yeah, but so in the springtime, you still get freezing temperatures.
Okay.
And you've got green tissue out there that's susceptible to getting.
Okay.
And if you lose it, then yes, you'll get repushed, but it won't be as fruitful. There's a lot of issues. It's uneven, right? And so we have to frost protect. So you're running fans, which you saw up in Anderson Valley, and/or sprinklers, depending on what kind of frost it is.
Okay. So then you get through frost management.
You have frost
season.
management, and then we're doing canopy. We start canopy, so we start we call it shoot thinning, suckering.
Okay.
So we want to remove all the shoots that aren't going to carry fruit.
Okay.
And we thin down to what's going to carry fruit.
Because you want that to take all the nutrients and all of that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Then we get to.
And then what we get into. Bloom,
then it starts being blooming, and then it's pretty, and then
you start
people
making
want to
decisions of opening your canopy, so removing leaves or laterals, depending on what winemakers' goals are, what kind of issues you've got out in the vineyard, and start monitoring that. You're doing floor management, and then come August, you'd like to kind of have your vine set, and you're worried about then any kind of late season irrigations going into harvest and monitoring that. And then middle of
And
August,
in California in particular, we're concerned about heat waves, and fires are a whole other issue. We'll just cross our fingers for that. But, so you're going to manage through that, then we're turning in the harvest.
That's it.
And we've talked a lot about the picking decisions and how that comes about. You're never going to harvest in August, though, are you?
We have.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think 2 years ago it was August, was very early. So in the middle of August is when we start our Sauvignon Blanc. So in Calistoga, and that's where we start, and then we start going pretty hard and heavy with Sauvignon Blanc, and then it turns into Pinot.
So you're picking the Sauvignon. Well, the Sauvignon Blanc is a different variety altogether, right? So you're pulling those first because they just don't need to be
And also we're picking those like 23 bricks versus like Pinot Noir 24 and 25 bricks, right? So it's just a different quality that we're after.
Okay.
Right.
And then you said Pinot.
And then Pinot.
And then Pinot, and then the Cabernet. So there is so much that goes into, a bottle of wine or thousands of cases of wine, right? It's complex work. There's a whole lot of decisions, a whole lot of people involved, a lot of expertise though, and all the inputs that Hope had talked about in our last interview. But all those inputs is what contributes to the amazingness or lack thereof of a bottle of wine. So we definitely want to respect the grape and just really appreciate, again, when you go to Napa Valley or, Paso Robles or Temecula or wherever it is, Sonoma County, right? So, and there are all these places and events and activities and so much this time of year. I mean, you're going to start to get, sort of the parties, the spring releases, the summer concerts, and all those kinds of things. All of that is, so around this grape, right? This whole industry that's flourished around the grape. And I just wanted you to know a little bit more about what went into it. And so when Nick and I finished our conversation, we actually went out we went out and we looked at the grapes. We walked the vines and the vineyards, and it was a rainy day, so it was actually really pretty, very interesting, muddy, but it's farm, right? I got to keep going back to that. So I'm going to wrap it up here for today. I will bring you some of the other clips that we had, and I'll just release those as individual. But this conversation, I'm so appreciative that Nick, took the time to explain to me and to you what it is that he does and his contribution for Silver Oak. And then we just had some final, just some final words here.
I really want to thank you for taking the time to give us a tour of the vineyard, to help us see what's going on and how we got to this point. It has been an educational, informative day, but just a lovely day, even with the rain, maybe even especially because of the rain.
Yeah.
This has been a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah, great. Cheers.
So thank you again for joining me on this episode of Living the Grape Life. This was, again, Nick Filice, the supply manager, the Grape Supply Manager at Silver Oak. This particular interview was recorded at the Alexander Valley location, which is in Hillsburg, California, which is Sonoma County. And they also have a tasting room in Napa Valley, the Oakville location, which is off of Highway 29. Sort of right in the heart of where, a lot of the wineries are, where most people do go for their winery experience. So, but again, thank you for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.